If you're a fan of fast, casual tacos and burritos, chances are that you're a regular patron of Chipotle. But unfortunately, while everything may look shiny on the outside, there are some pretty big secrets that this chain would rather you not know about. Chipotle is often praised for the minimalist chic of its design, where spare but considered interior architecture mimics spare but considered ingredients. And while that might make a great story for the magazines, it's actually a load of rubbish. When Steve Ells opened his first Chipotle restaurant in 1993, he did it with minimal funding, so he wasn't in a position to splurge on interior designers. So he went to a local hardware store and cobbled together whatever he could from what he found there. Luckily for him, the spare industrial aesthetic never seems to go out of style for the burrito-craving demographic, and other chains have reportedly been eager to recreate this success. Unfortunately, since desperately doing the best you can with a limited budget isn't a commonly recognized interior design process, they may end up paying quite a lot for a bad copy of cheapness. You might think it's fair to assume that a restaurant called Chipotle Mexican Grill would be interested in promoting Latin American culture, but certain events suggest that that may not actually be the case. In 2014, Chipotle decided to bring some literary flavor to the dining experience by commissioning 10 writers and creatives to produce new works that would grace the restaurant's bags and cups for a campaign called Cultivating Thought. That probably sounds perfectly reasonable so far. There's nothing inherently wrong with bringing a little cultural enlightenment to an otherwise indigestion-riddled lunch break. The problem was that the program didn't include a single Mexican or Mexican-American writer. They did have a cup designed by Miguel Bustos, who hails from Spain. But still, for a restaurant making a fortune by imitating Mexican cuisine, you'd think that hiring Mexican artists to participate in a promotional campaign would be a no-brainer. But it seems Chipotle only cares about the parts of Mexican culture people want to put in their faces, and not the parts that can amplify minority voices. Writers Lisa Alvarez and Alex Espinoza even created a Facebook page called Cultivating Invisibility, Chipotle's Missing Mexicans. As Espinoza wrote, "Here's the thing. I exist. I am full of stories. Just ask me and I'll tell you. But you have to ask. Don't ignore me. Don't eat my food and think you know me." To turn a profit, a company has to make more money than it spends. One of the biggest expenses for companies like Chipotle is labor. Thanks to minimum wage laws, there isn't much that can be done to reduce that. Or so you might think. In 2016, almost 10,000 American Chipotle employees joined a lawsuit claiming that the company was guilty of wage theft. The accusation alleged that managers at Chipotle restaurants required workers on the closing shift to clock out at a certain time, but then continue working unpaid until they were given permission to leave. Furthermore, at many of the company's locations, the process was automated, with workers being automatically clocked out at a set time whether or not they were finished working.
I did it because I was tired of getting taken advantage of.
Chipotle denied the allegations, claiming that the problem was with a few managers who didn't follow policy. But no matter what the company claims its policy is, with this many complaints coming out, it's worth noting that actions speak louder than words. If you've ever spent a few months throwing your extra change into a jar and then doing something fun with the resulting cash, you know that it can add up pretty quickly. When all that spare change comes from Chipotle customers, you can imagine that the chain would make a fortune by keeping all that loose change that they're supposed to give back. And according to a lawsuit filed in 2020, that's exactly what happened. As reported by Pittsburgh's KDKA, the Pennsylvania Attorney General's office received numerous complaints of Chipotle locations that weren't giving customers their proper change back. One customer claimed that when her bill came out to $15.51, she was given just $4 change when she paid $20. Another customer claimed that they had a bill of $8.72, paid with a $20, and got only $11 back. Attorneys representing these surprised customers alleged that this was a top-down directive from the corporation, and that the excuse is likely a coin shortage related to the COVID-19 pandemic. As attorney Frank Selpietro put it, "I understand that the pandemic is affecting all of us, but that doesn't give Chipotle the license to line its own pockets at the expense of consumers."
An attorney, Sal Pietro, says this can really impact those who could least afford it, people who don't have an ATM card or a credit card.
As for Chipotle, it offered no immediate response to the accusations. Chipotle has always made a big deal about its guacamole, which makes it especially noticeable when it suddenly becomes less than appetizing. In 2019, some customers were complaining that the guacamole they were served was brown and stringy. It was just generally pretty nasty, the kind of nasty that made people wonder why Chipotle was still serving it. As it turns out, some locations actually did stop, and the problem was even bigger than originally thought. Social media was filled with images of people pulling entire sections of unripe avocado out of their bowls and burritos. The worst thing was that Chipotle claimed that it was pretty much normal. What happened was an annual switch in avocado suppliers. Mexican avocados are in season between November and April, so Peruvian avocados fill in during the summer months. In a statement, Chipotle's chief communications officer, Lori Shallow, said, "Due to the seasonal transition from Peruvian to Mexican supplies that happens every year at this time, we are experiencing normal variabilities in our avocados." But as far as plenty of customers saw it, this wasn't exactly a normal thing that happens every year, leaving many people to now be on the lookout for brown guacamole. Do you think twice about getting that guacamole at Chipotle? The company is hoping that you don't, because the big picture is kind of terrifying. According to Chipotle, customers order about 50 million pounds of guacamole per year. That translates to more than 450,000 avocados per day, which might be hard to wrap your head around, especially when you consider that avocados are pretty terrible for the planet. There's a lot to unpack here. For starters, many of the places where avocados grow, like Mexico, Peru, California, and Chile, are regions that frequently labor under water shortages. Considering that avocados require about twice the amount of water as a crop like oranges, that's a huge strain. Skyrocketing demand for avocados has also been linked to deforestation and environmental degradation. The vast acreage devoted to avocados consists of what are called monoculture plantations. That means they're consistently growing just one crop. And without crop rotations, that means greater need for fertilizers and pesticides, which brings a whole new host of problems to deal with. Even worse, large-scale avocado production has also attracted the attention of Mexican cartels, which have gotten in on the avocado industry by demanding part of the profits as protection money. We imagine that Chipotle hopes that you don't realize that's where some of your money is ending up. Chipotle has a rather distressing history with food poisoning. 2015 was a particularly bad year, as more than 350 people reported getting food poisoning after eating at Chipotle that year, with cases occurring in at least 11 different states. 2017 wasn't much better, as one Virginia Chipotle location closed after multiple customers reported that they'd gotten food poisoning after eating there. In 2018, food poisoning at Chipotle was back in the news again, as an Ohio location was linked to around 700 cases of unidentified foodborne illnesses and was ultimately the target of lawsuits filed by customers who needed to be hospitalized. Chipotle's food poisoning woes have added up to a lot of pain and suffering that the company is literally paying for. In April 2020, Chipotle agreed to settle criminal charges brought against them by paying a whopping $25 million fine. That covered the fallout for more than 1,100 food poisoning cases spanning 2015 to 2018. The settlement also involved Chipotle admitting that poor safety practices such as not keeping food at the proper temperatures were to blame for the string of outbreaks. It was also reported that Chipotle had spent tens of millions of dollars since 2015 upgrading its food safety equipment for better protection for its customers.
I believe this will be the safest restaurant to eat at.
In the face of constant corporate self-promotion and sales hype, it can be hard to distinguish between accepted reality and convenient untruths. Restaurants have a habit of saying whatever they can get away with if it helps them sell more food, and Chipotle is as guilty of this as any others in the industry. In April 2015, the company announced that its entire menu would be GMO-free. This might seem like an insignificant declaration, but as it turns out, GMOs, or genetically modified organisms, are a scientifically supported path towards sustainably feeding and growing a world population. So, casually throwing a wrench in the works by declaring a menu GMO-free is an ethically questionable act. As pointed out by the Washington Post's reporting, Chipotle was engaging in baseless negative propaganda against GMOs in the pursuit of profit.
But for years now, we've been committed to what we call food with integrity. And so the removal of GMOs is just a natural evolution of that.
With all the misinformation about GMOs flying around, Chipotle can neatly attach its fear-based marketing ploy onto the back of its standard elevator pitch about food ethics and sustainability. But the truth is that without the continued use and development of GMOs, there may be no sustainable way to prevent a lot of people from dying of hunger in the near future. But since deaths don't count as losses in the end-of-year financial figures, there's no clear and obvious reason for Chipotle to care from a profit-making standpoint. In 2016, Chipotle tried to reverse its flagging popularity by introducing its first new ingredient since 2014, chorizo. That sounds perfectly fine so far. Plenty of people love a bit of spicy chorizo. Unfortunately, alongside the cumin, peppers, and paprika present in the new concoction, there was also a generous serving of coarse ground lies. Or at least, that's what was alleged in a lawsuit. This accusation of dishonesty came from Chipotle's in-store advertising, appearing to claim that a burrito made with the new ingredient would contain just 300 calories. Unfortunately, if you total up the proposed ingredients using Chipotle's own calculator, the real number actually comes out to 1,055 calories. Chipotle responded to customers on Twitter with a half-baked apology that wasn't much of an apology. The tweet said that the 300 calories referred to just the chorizo and nothing else, and that the banner was unintentionally confusing. If that's true, then Chipotle has some serious quality control issues in its design department, and we wouldn't be surprised if someone was fired for that blunder. In January 2020, Chipotle agreed to pay out $1.3 million after being accused of routinely violating child labor laws. The allegations were centered around locations in Massachusetts. The chain was accused of forcing employees under the age of 18 to work late nights and more hours per day and week than is legally allowed. The investigation into the chain's child labor practices took 3 years. It was kicked off by one 2016 complaint from an employee's parent who called the state's Attorney General's office after the employee was kept at work past midnight. The investigation confirmed that this was far from the only instance of labor abuse. As Massachusetts Attorney General Maura Healey noted, "We hope these citations send a message to other fast food chains and restaurants that they cannot violate our child labor laws and put young people at risk." The penalty was the largest child labor-related fine in Massachusetts history. In addition to the fine, Chipotle also paid out $500,000 for youth programs designed to teach minors about the labor laws in place to protect them. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more mashed videos about your favorite restaurant chains are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.